was out here at 7-Eleven looking for a face mask. I got a hot tip and I found it. Merca. So today we're looking at fuel system components, specifically ones that use O-rings. And I just wanted to give you a really quick tech tip. See that little piece right there kind of floating off by my thumb? That's a piece of the O-ring. When I took this apart, the O-ring stuck to the housing, causing it to tear, which means I have to go find a new O-ring for this really big, radium, beautiful fuel filter, which is going to be a pain in the butt. So how do you prevent that from happening? Well, it's a really good idea to lubricate your O-rings prior to installing them. This isn't going to unthread itself. There's no torsional forces on this piece. So by putting a little bit of good old-fashioned Vaseline or even motor oil works, just to lubricate the O-ring, you end up with both easier install and, so I get it to sit, much easier install, as well as, can't do this one-handed very well, but basically it's going to it's going to install easier, and it's not going to damage the O-rings when you install it. Same thing with ORB fittings. This one's not actually an ORB, but it has an O-ring on it. Make sure that you lubricate the O-ring, or else when you tighten it, the O-ring is going to bind and pinch and it can tear. And if it tears, you'll end up with a fuel leak. Maybe not now, but maybe at some point when you're driving the car down the road. So lubricate your O-rings. Some companies they ship their O-rings with some special lube. They call it super lube. It's basically just petroleum jelly. Yeah, so pulled this apart just to check it for debris. It's looking pretty good. Anyway. Another very common problem that I see, and this wasn't present on this particular car, but I see people use like Teflon tape and whatnot on AN fittings. You never ever need to use any kind of sealant on an AN fitting. If it doesn't seal, it's because it's damaged and it needs to be replaced. Using Teflon on a seal like this, it's a taper, so it's a taper there and a taper on the inside of this. If you have to use Teflon or something like that, it's because you've scuffed it up, you've over-tightened it, and by over-tightening it, you've damaged the fitting, and it's never going to seal correctly. So just don't do that. Let's get the Radium logo up. Also make sure on fuel filters there is a direction of flow. These ones are marked outlet. The other side, it's marked inlet as well. So fuel coming out of the car from the fuel pumps to the filter, out to the Y to the fuel rails. So make sure you get that right. They flow. The radiums don't seem to be quite as drastic, but if you flow the other way, what'll happen is that O-ring that was holding the filter on will push the filter off and it'll pop out and not actually filter. So you want to make sure that the fuel is going the correct direction. Final tip, if you have really tight clearances like on this car with this intercooler pipe, you want to make sure that you're not going to rattle against it. Metal on metal noises trip up knock sensors, so I just cut a silicone coupler, kind of wrapped it 3/4 of the way around that and zip tied it on, and it's going to isolate because they are touching each other, so you don't want that. Anywhere things touch, I need to do the same right here on this fitting. You can see where previously it had been rubbing against the brake booster. Again, especially on this, you have that rub there. It's aluminum on steel, and if that rubs through, you have a fuel leak. It's bad news. So got to get rid of the rattles, got to keep the fuel flowing, keep it all sealed up, and you'll have a good day. And look, you get all the fuel together and oh, they make 700 horsepower. Look at that. But you look at that. Oh yeah, another thing I had the alternator problem. We were only hitting 12 volts at the alternator, which was closer to probably 11 and a half back at the pumps. So got the alternator voltage dialed up, and magically my fuel problems are solved and we're making some power.